Hello guys, welcome back to our new session. Just I would like to discuss about some few points from the Collregs, which the responsibility of the vessels which I have not mentioned in the Collregs. I'm just giving you a few examples, but there are a lot of situations in the Collregs. There is no responsibility has been mentioned between the two vessels. So one of the example, what we can see from here, here is a ram vessel. Here is a NUC vessel. The rule number 18 does not specify any responsibility between the ram vessel or the NUC vessel. But however, there are hidden responsibility mentioned in the rules. Let's consider that what is meant by the ram. If you check in the Collreg, if you check the rule number 2, for every vessel there is given some description. I mean, what is mean by a vessel, what is mean by ram, what is mean by NUC. If there is any specific definition has been given, for example, the ram is also propelled by machinery, you can't consider ram as a power driven vessel, because there is some specific responsibility, specific definition as given for the ram. So it will not be considered as a power driven vessel, even though if it is propelled by machinery. So for the ram vessel, due to the nature of the work, she is ram. That is defined in rule number 2. So same like that, NUC due to the exceptional circumstances. What is mean by exceptional circumstances? Main engine failure. However, main engine failure, if you are still able to maneuver, if you are able to go to the starboard side, port side using the headway and using a rudder, still you are not NUC. If you wanted to be NUC, you should lose all your steerage way. You can't able to maneuver as required by the rules. You should lose your maneuverability. That is called NUC. So another example is a propeller fully damaged, where you can't able to maneuver. Your rudder is fully damaged, where you can't able to maneuver. And all these situations what I'm talking about is exceptional circumstances, where you cannot able to maneuver. But if you check with the responsibility between the ram and NUC, you have to go back to the definition again. Ram is due to the nature of the work. That means she is transferring the pilot, or she is engaged in cargo operation while underway, and any other operation, mine clearance operation. So all defined in rule number 2. But however, the rule number 2 is also saying that notwithstanding, for the definition of the ram, notwithstanding means whatever the 6 points they have mentioned as a ram, not only that, it may be more than that. For example, if the vessel is towing a rig unit, oil rig unit, the vessel is going for the search and rescue operation, also considered as a ram. The vessel is carrying out a bomb search operation, like in UK they have a drone vessel which is specialized for searching the bombs at sea. So also considered as a ram. Due to the nature of the work, she is restricted in ability to maneuver. So the ram is, because of her job, because of her some work, she is restricted. You can say that the ram vessel is healthy, but however, she is, because of the work, she is not able to maneuver. But however, if you check with the NUC, she is not healthy, she is fully disabled. The ram is half disabled. The ram can stop her job anytime, and she can come back to this normal situation. She can come back to as a normal PDV. She can come back to a normal power driven vessel. She can stop the work and she can immediately turn into the different situation. She can become a normal vessel. But however, if you check the NUC, she can't do that immediately. If the propeller is fully damaged, she can't immediately fix the propeller. She can behave like a power driven vessel. So here is the bigger limitations involved among those two vessels. So the NUC has a more priority. The NUC has more disabled, the fully disabled. So she can't do anything, but ram can do something. If you go to the court of law, when ram and NUC is collided, of course the ram will be persecuted, because she can able to stop the job, she can able to take an avoiding action when she is involving with the risk of collision with the NUC, where her propeller is completely damaged. But when she go to the court of law, if she collided, that it does not mean that she is going to be persecuted. She has to prove that she did all her best to do to avoid the collision. She did all her best. She's immediately stopping the job what is carrying out, and she's altering the course. But even though she could not able to avoid the collision, that means okay, fine, the liability on both of them. But literally speaking, the ram is more responsible. But where it is defined in the rules, if you go back to the rules, rule number 2, see, the rule number 2 is the ultimate of all the rules. The rule number 2 has been brought in place because the collision regulation cannot define each and every situation. There may be so many situations. Now I'm talking about RAM and NUC. Like this, so many situations. They cannot define a rule for each and every single scenario. So in order to cover the loopholes in the rule, that's why they brought in the rule 2. What is the rule 2 saying? That when you're construing and complying, when you're analyzing and you're complying with the rules of the road, when you're taking action in accordance with the rules of the road, you also take consideration of the limitations of the vessel involved. Before you take action, just check what is the limitations of the vessel. Here the limitation of the vessel is NUC. Maybe she's having a rudder or propeller broken, or NUC, main engine failure. RAM, her limitation, she is transferring the pilot or transferring the cargo while underway. So both having the limitation. So when they involved in the risk of the collision, to avoid immediate danger, you can able to deviate from the rule. What is mean by deviate from the rule? The rule does not say anywhere what is a responsibility. So I am just going out of the box to take action, and who's going to take what action? The RAM is more responsible because the limitations of the vessel involved compared to NUC, the RAM has a less limitation. And also, if you go back to the rule number 2.1, when you are not relieved from the obligation, or you will not be free from the liability of keeping clear the other vessel using the best seamanship practice. What is the best seamanship practice? The master of the RAM vessel must have to understand the NUC have more limitations in accordance with the rule number 2 part B. So it is the responsibility of the RAM vessel has to keep clear, but it does not mean that the NUC is fully set free from the rules. She has to do whatever possible she can do it. She can give 5 short rapid blasters supplemented with the light to attract the attention of the RAM. She can, if the propeller is completely damaged, she can try to get an bow thrust immediately. If it's try to avoid from the going to the RAM in collision course, or if in the shallow water, she can try to drop an anchor. She has to do, she can sound a continuous Fox signal which indicates the distress according to Collreg. So she has to do all the things whatever she must have to do. So this is the responsibility between the RAM and the NUC. Let's say we'll discuss other situation. This situation is, we are in a narrow channel. So this is a fishing vessel. This is a fishing vessel. Let's say there's another fishing vessel crossing in a narrow channel. This fishing vessel in the narrow channel following a buoyed channel, and she can't able to deviate from the narrow channel. If her draft is, let's say this fishing vessel draft is, let's say 10 meters, and the depth of the channel is, let's say 12 meters, she can able to navigate only within the buoyed channel. She can't go outside the narrow channel. And here the fishing vessel draft is, let's say 4 meters. She is crossing. Now who's responsible between both the fishing vessel? Whether this vessel is responsible or this vessel is responsible to keep clear. Here the answer is defined directly into the rule number 9 part C or D, I don't remember exactly. What does it say? A vessel engaged, and you can read I have extracted from the rule number 9. A vessel engaged in fishing shall not impede the passage of any other vessel navigating only within the narrow channel or fairway. You can note down the point, shall not impede the passage of any other vessel, which includes whether it is a PDV, whether it's a fishing vessel, or whether it is a sailing vessel. Does not matter. If you are a fishing vessel, you don't have to think who is in the narrow channel. You just don't impede anybody's navigation when they are safely navigate within the narrow channel. That's all. Finish. end of the story. So if there is a risk of collision between the fishing vessel and the fishing vessel in a narrow channel, the vessel which can safely navigate only within the narrow channel is bound to proceed, it bound to stand on with caution. The vessel which is impeding has to take an action in this scenario. But some people might ask, the vessel in the narrow channel, vessel engaged in fishing in narrow channel, can she allowed to fish now? Because she is in the narrow channel. But the rule does not say anywhere the vessel engaged in fishing shall not fish in the narrow channel. The rule says, the rule number part 9, the first para itself saying, a vessel using a narrow channel or fairway shall keep to the starboard side of the channel or fairway which is safe and practicable. So the vessel engaged in fishing shall have to keep to the starboard side of the channel which is safe and practicable. But however, a vessel engaged in fishing shall not impede the passage of any vessel following a narrow channel. What in case if a power driven vessel, if a large power driven vessel requires some sea room, so she is coming this way, she is going in inbound. But what about now? If she is fishing, she might impede. In this case, if this guy fishing inside the narrow channel, causing concern, impede the passage of a big guy PDV, then the vessel is impeding then this guy is impeding the passage of a big PDV. Then she is this fishing vessel bound to take an action. Let's say we'll see one more scenario, responsibility between the fishing vessel and the fishing vessel. If let's say we consider that this is open sea, there's two fishing vessels are there, and both are underway and making way and also engaged in fishing. They are going to collide in a point where I have marked a cross. Now who is going to keep clear, who is going to stand on? The rule number 18 does not specify anywhere who is the stand on, who is the giveaway, who has to keep clear. But first of all, do the international collision regulation apply to this between the both fishing vessels? Yes, it does apply. Where does it mention in the rules? If you go back to the rule number 1, the first line itself it's saying that these rules apply to all the vessels on the high seas. It does not matter. You are a fishing vessel, you are a sailing vessel, you are a dredger vessel, you are a PDV vessel. If you are a vessel, the international collision regulation apply to you. So what we read the international collision regulation, the same international collision regulation apply to them also. But what about the responsibility between them? Who is going to keep clear in this situation is not defined in the rule number 18. Again, whichever is not defined in the rule number 18, the only rule you have to go back is rule number 8. Sorry, rule number 2. Rule number 2. Only rule you have to go back to is rule number 2, because the rule number 2 says best seamanship practice and take into consideration the limitations of the vessel involved. As I explained earlier in the beginning of this video, the same principle will apply here. If let's say this vessel is nets come upon obstruction, 2 all-round red light, she is having 2 all-round red light, nets come upon obstruction, she is just only making a fishing. So this vessel is making only fishing, so she has to take an action. Even though both the vessels are responsible to take an action, but the more priority action goes for the vessel number 2. But however, what are the other rules are involved? Before the risk of the collision involved in both the vessels should have acted according to rule number 5, keeping a proper lookout. They should have proceeded in the safe speed. They should have identified the risk of the collision in rule number 7. They should have taken action in rule number 8, well in advance action. So they should have not developed this action to be this situation to be developed. But however, if it is developed, they are bound to take action as per rule number 2. Both are responsible. It does not say, the rule does not say one guy is responsible, one guy is not responsible. If you check with any rule, the international collision regulation, nowhere it will state only one vessel is responsible, other vessel is not responsible. Some people will debate the rule number 15 or the rule number 16, 17, or the rule number 18 also does not make a responsibility between both the vessels. It does make a responsibility. For example, rule number 18, the rule number 18 is saying that shall keep out of the way of the power driven vessel shall keep out of the way of sailing, fishing, ram and NUC. But what about, hang on a minute, if the power driven vessel failed to take an action, so the vessel engaged in fishing is free? When they go to the court of law, they can claim full rights? No, of course not. The vessel engaged in fishing are bound to take action if the power driven vessel not taking an action according to the rule number 17. The rule number 18 is directly indicates responsibility between the stand-on and a giveaway vessel. So the same thing applies here when you overtaking. Often we can hear in the radio when you are at sea, if a vessel is overtaking, and if the overtaking vessel calling in, actually using the radio is a very wrong practice in the Collreg, but people also debating, it does not mention in the Collreg, they have not mentioned that nowhere should they are you're not allowed to use it is not mentioned, they are debating, but it is mentioned you should not use the radio during the Collregs for taking an action. It does not mention anywhere directly, but it does mention indirectly. But however, that's a different part of the story. But people used to say, when the overtaking vessel calls and ask him to give him some sea room for the vessel to be overtaken, they would say, oh, okay, I'm not responsible, you're overtaking vessel, you should take an action. But first of all, using the radio is a wrong action. But the next thing is, the vessel to be overtaken is not understanding the rules. He is bound by the rule number 17. If the vessel is a overtaking vessel failed to take action, or his action making a situation developing the risk of collision, his action is not sufficient, then the rule number 17 applies for the vessel to be overtaken, and she is bound to take an action. When they go to the court of law, if the vessel to be overtaken is not taken sufficient action and they involved in the risk of the collision, both the vessel will be prosecuted 50-50%. Both are liable to take responsibility. But where does it mention? If you go back to the overtaking rule clearly states a vessel deemed to be overtaking from more than 22.5 degrees above the beam, one of the, she has one of the vessel shall keep out of the way of other, and it does directly indicating rule number 16 and 17. If you go back to the rule number 13 overtaking rule and match the word by word, the words shall keep out of the way, that will match exactly rule number 16 and 17. So if you are overtaking, one is a giveaway vessel, one is a stand-on vessel. That's all, end of the story. So both are responsible.